Hi ladies and gentlemen, today is February 24th, 2017, and you know, I read on WorldNet Daily this morning that there were a group of witches who were going to start casting spells at Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, there was I can't really say she's an acquaintance of mine because I've never met her, but the lady who did the opening plate for all of my videos, Pam Jones, she was in an altercation with obviously some sort of a Satanist or something, and it got pretty ugly. And so I jumped in there and I asked this person if they understood sacred numerology, and then I sent them a little code, and I think that probably did the job. Now, no, I'm not a warlock. No, I'm definitely a Christian, as you all know, somewhat different than most. The basics are all there, and yesterday I gave that little video about McMaster's, and in the very beginning of it I was talking about the reforming of early Christianity and Judaism. And some of you may have thought, well, gee, that's pretty bad, you know, don't you believe in Jesus Christ? Do you think that's all changed? Well, there's a difference between what the Roman Empire wanted us to think about that and what actually happened. And that's basically what I was talking about. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject. That's not why I'm here today. I want to talk about these witches first. You know, you have to be really careful, witches and warlocks, when you do these types of things. I'm going to tell you a little story, okay, and you'll probably remember it. Yeah, it's from the Old Testament. It's during the Exodus, and Moses comes to Pharaoh, and you know, they've been going back and forth on letting Israel go and all that, and finally the Pharaoh says, you know what, I'm gonna kill all the firstborn. And Moses says, wow, you shouldn't have said that, because the very words that are coming out of your mouth are what you've proclaimed against your own people and your own house. And sure enough, he lost his firstborn son, as did everybody in Egypt. He didn't have the Passover blood over their door. And anyway, the only reason why I bring that up is because witches, you start doing stuff like that and you send it at the wrong person, and Donald Trump, believe me, is the wrong person, those things are going to come back on you. So I suggest that you probably not do that, not because Donald Trump needs to be concerned about it. I'm concerned about what you're going to do to yourselves. Seriously. So just take that as, you know, for what it's worth. I won't even go any further than that. Yeah, I'm pretty well versed in this stuff, okay? All right, well, anyway. I know there's some consternation about the meanings of the scriptures. I want to start out, and yeah, this is kind of that kind of a video, but like I say, I think these are needed once in a while. You have to understand that the Bible is a compilation of books. The Old Testament, in particular, was redacted by the prophet Ezra out of the oral tradition and some other writings that were there. So it's kind of, well, it's a redaction of all of those things. It's not like somebody sat down and just wrote from start to finish that whole story. It's a collection of books, not one book. I think most people understand that, but then I start seeing these people talking about, well, you know, this didn't happen that way, like that, or you said it happened like this, or whatever. I had some friends that called me up the other night and said, well, what do you mean by this and that? And I said, look, you know, the Bible is a redacted group of books that were put together. Most of you have probably heard about the Council of Nice, right? Nicaea, where they decided on which books would be in the canon and which wouldn't, and that was from the Christians' perspective. You know, and the Jewish people had already done it for the Tanakh. But there were other books they didn't include. Sometimes they did, like the Catholics include the Maccabees, you know, the Protestants don't. So the point is that there's more out there that you can get your hands on and understand what was really happening in the historical context, if you even believe it to be an historical context, which I do for the most part. So there are other places you can get information and put it together. I'm an historian. I go after historiography. I go after historical method. I do things and I don't use one source. And Josephus is a really important one because he was a Jewish high priest. He was a Jewish general, and he was also in the priesthood. So he understood a lot of things. So, despite the fact he was writing for the Flavians, the Roman emperor, so it's going to be tainted, and good historians will understand that. The fact is that Josephus is a good place to get information, as are some other sources. So when I talk about things, I'm bringing in a lot of information, not just the redacted Bible. Now, I will say this. Ezra was a priest, and in the sense of how can I say this so you'll understand it? Appointed by God, not by lineage, I guess is what I'm saying here. And maybe that too, but the real point of the matter was he was a prophet. He may have actually been somebody else we know very well in the Bible. But what I'm trying to say here is that he did make sure that in the Torah, that one long run-on word from the very first letter in Genesis, the very last letter in Deuteronomy, were exactly right. Okay. Other than that, there are codes there, and that's the reason why that's like that and why it's so important. But you can still get the other information about what's going on by using historical analysis. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up, and this, you might want to go read Matthew 13:11 and Luke 8:10, because it's real important that you understand there that it was given to Jesus' apostles to know the mysteries, and it was hidden from everyone else. So a lot of times, people that know these things will give you a little bit of information to see how much you can handle. And I'm not a great follower of Paul, but Paul did say, the Apostle Paul, he did say that, all things are lawful unto me, but not all things are expedient. He understood the gospel of the perfect law of liberty, and whether he actually followed it or not is another matter altogether. But he also said, and this is kind of important, that you don't give meat to those who can only digest milk. So things are said so that those at different levels of understanding can be fed. Feed my sheep. Some are going to understand the mysteries because that's their spiritual desire, their hunger, their thirst, their understanding. Others, they don't get it at all. So just going to bring that up, let it out there for what it's worth. And then, I wanted to talk one more time about Donald Trump, because he's doing fantastic things. A lot of the things that he's doing are out of the sight of a lot of people. They don't really know what's going on. I certainly don't know it all. But the point is that I think he's really after the Luciferian system, the pedophiles, the New World Order, the alphabet regulatory agencies that are way out of control, all of that. I really honestly think he's about that. And I know he and his wife, Melania Flotus, the First Lady, are genuinely God-fearing people. It's very, very obvious if you look. The dichotomy between them and some of the leaders that you see in the leftist Marxist movement, the DNC and all those, it's so obvious, it's stunning. It's bright compared to those people in the DNC and the leftist Marxists. But he can still make mistakes. He's just a man. And so I kind of wanted to bring up this story, why I sometimes bring up things that he's doing. And most of them are not serious, but we kind of want to, and he accepts this if he gets it. He kind of likes some input, and so I'll do that. I'll send out this information, as will a lot of other people. Whether he sees it or not, I don't know. But I wanted to bring up the thing about David, the king of Israel, because he's a really good example. As you know, God called him, a man after his own heart, a man after God's heart. Very, very important information. It's another one of those things that's stunning. Well, and then something happens. Do you remember this? He sees, the captain of his army is a very good friend of his by the name of Uriah. They call him a Hittite, but that's more of where he was from. It wasn't his nationality or anything like that. And I could get into that later. But the point is, he was the general of the army. And he had a beautiful wife by the name of Bathsheba. Remember this story? And what David did was he allowed his desire for Bathsheba to overcome him to such a point that he set up a situation where he knew Uriah would be killed on the battlefield. So it was a premeditated thing to steal a man's wife and to murder him. Really bad. Really, really bad. Nathan the prophet comes to him. And Nathan was an important guy. There's a lot about him. I'm not going to go into that here either. But he comes to David and he says, hey, what about this guy, who did this terrible thing? And he took advantage of these people. What should happen to him? And David says, bring him here. I'm gonna execute him. I'm gonna judge him, and he's gonna be in big trouble. And Nathan the prophet says, you are the man in the story I'm talking about. Thus saith the Lord, I have given you everything. I've given you the throne of Israel. I've given you your master. He's talking about Saul. I've given you his house. I've given you his wives. I've given you his belongings. I've given everything of his to you. Put his wives into your arms, into your bosom. All of these things I've given to you, and if that hadn't been enough, I'd have given you more. He didn't have to take. All he had to do was ask. I think Uriah would have given him Bathsheba if he had asked for her. But you see what happened here. Even a good man like David could make a mistake. So, in Trump, I'm not saying he's like a David, but the story, the moral of the story is the same. So, we're going to continue to try to, keep the information flow open despite the censorship of Twitter and Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook, but all of that communication. So I just wanted to leave that with you today, kind of a thought. I kind of like to do this on a Friday afternoon. So I'll just leave it there.